Hi everybody, I'm Chef AJ. Hi everybody, I'm Chef AJ. I was told I wasn't speaking loud enough. I like to wait until somebody logs on to tell me that they have sound before I continue, because the first time we did this, about 6.5 minutes were silent, so I don't want that to happen again in case there's good information. Why are you shaking your head, Kenny?
Is there people online still? Oh, there's one.
There's one. Could you please tell me if you can hear me? Type it in if you can. Anyone listening, if you can hear me? If we have sound, please say, yes, I can hear you, and we'll get started. Bailey? Yeah? Bailey can hear me.
Yes.
So we have sound. All right, great. All right, so here we go. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hi everybody, I'm Chef AJ, the creator of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, and welcome to Weight Loss Wednesday, where I answer your questions about healthy, permanent, and sustainable weight loss. Weight Loss Wednesday is filmed before a live studio audience. Bailey doesn't need to lose weight. All right, so let's get started. What I'd like you to do is submit your questions in advance if you can. That's just because sometimes if they come in during, the broadcast, it's a little more difficult to see them. So we have a few from last week, and I'm going to have my director, Kenny, read them to me one at a time. And here we go.
Jody wants to know if she will be able to lose weight and maintain her weight loss if she eats nuts. She is afraid not to eat them because all the plant-based doctors insist we must eat them for health. Right. Your thoughts?
That's a great question. Thank you, Jody. First of all, not all the plant-based doctors insist we must eat them. As a matter of fact, I just got home from Dallas, where I had the privilege of speaking with Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr., who wrote the book Prevent Reverse Heart Disease, and he had a pretty strict no-nut message, especially from his patients with heart disease. And as far as I know, Dr. John McDougall does not advocate nuts, at least as necessary, especially if somebody is wanting to lose weight. I speak at a lot of conferences, and often there's doctors that say we must eat nuts, we must include them. And then I speak and I talk about my weight loss experience, which did not happen until I stopped eating nuts. And it gets a little frustrating and confusing. And so I emailed Dr. McDougall and I said, how do I respond? And he said, have him write me, because he said a lot of times some of the doctors that are telling you you have to eat nuts aren't actually in practice. They're not in clinical practice. They're not actually treating patients the way that Dr. McDougall has for 40 years, and he sees what can happen when people eat too many nuts. That said, if you can limit your nut consumption to an ounce a day, that's perfectly healthy. It's just that I've worked with over 2,000 food addicts now, and most of them can't. I know that I couldn't. Let me put it this way. I actually did eat only 1 ounce of nuts for an entire year. I did an experiment. When I first went to True North as a patient in January of 2011, they advocate a whole food, plant-based, sugar-free, oil-free, salt-free, flour-free diet that is low fat, an ounce of nuts or seeds a day. And so I limited my nut consumption to the heart-healthy walnuts, 1 ounce a day, weighed and measured, for an entire year till I started the Ultimate Weight Loss Program in January of 2012. And I did not gain any weight, but my weight did not budge. It wasn't until I completely stopped eating all added fat in the form of nuts, seeds, and avocados for the first time in my life that I was able to lose weight effortlessly, deliciously, and sustainably. That said, if you can moderate the use of nuts and eat only an ounce a day, please do it. It's just I can't, and I don't really know a lot of people, at least people that are overweight, that can. Dr. Goldhammer says if you could have done it, you probably would have done it by now. So what I suggest you do is an experiment like Dr. Lyle had me do. If you have fat on your body, you're not going to become fatty acid deficient in just 21 or 30 days. So why not do an experiment and stop eating added fat for 21 or 30 days and see if the scale starts to budge. I'm not a doctor, this is just my experience, but I recommend that you look at some of the research, because at the very end of these medical research articles, it tells you who funds the research. And pretty much all the nut research I have read is funded by the nut companies, the people that want you to buy nuts, just like the coconut oil research is funded by the people that want you to buy coconuts. Of all the allergies, of all the food allergies, nuts is always at the top of the list. I believe something like more than 2 million Americans are allergic to tree nuts. Some of them, it can be life or death. And I just can't believe that there would be a food that is that necessary to our survival, that our ancestors only ate in moderation. They come in hard shells. If you actually have seen a walnut, in a shell. Well, in nature, there's like another shell around it. It almost looks like a dirt softball. Try opening that. Even, I don't know how they could have even eaten an ounce a day. And now people go to Costco and eat 3 pounds of nuts. I mean, I don't know if they eat them in a sitting, but you can get them shelled for you, you can get them salted, and you can get them roasted. An ounce of nuts is actually a very small amount. It's like a palmful. It's about a quarter cup for 200 calories and 20 grams of fat. The problem is they are so delicious, and they're a high-fat food, and they can perpetuate overeating, and they can be not so much an addictive food the way that sugars and flours and alcohol are, but they can be trigger foods for people that struggle with food addictions and their weight. And so my advice to you would be, if you can eat an ounce a day and comfortable with your health and weight, please by all means do so. But if not, why not do an experiment of 21 to 30 days and see what happens? You know, seeds are actually healthier than nuts, and if the reason you want to eat nuts is because you're worried about getting sufficient omega-3 fatty acids, the essential fatty acids, there's nothing wrong with having 1 to 3 teaspoons of ground flax seeds or chia seeds every day, either in your oatmeal or if you do smoothies or on your salad. Healthier than nuts, less potential to binge or overeat on them. So that's what Dr. Esselstyn recommends to his patients, and you can certainly do that. You know, it's interesting because we have a person in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program that had amazing results, and she just got to her ideal slender weight, was running races, was a just smoking hot body, and following the principles of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. And then she decided to experiment by reintroducing nuts and dried fruit into her diet to make, you know, those like little delicious truffle Larabar type things. And before you know it, she had gained 5% of her weight back, just like that. So, you know, it's a high calorie food, it's a high fat food. If you can moderate your use of it, you know, it's certainly healthy. But I don't believe that we have to have nuts to be healthy. These studies that are done, I encourage you to go to the wonderful website vegsource.com, run by Jeff and Sabrina Nelson. And if you live in town, meaning Los Angeles, or willing to travel, on October 14th, 15th, and 16th in Valencia, they're having their Healthy Lifestyle Expo, and Dr. Neil Barnard will be speaking, Dr. John McDougall and son and his wife Mary will be there, I'll be speaking. And he did some wonderful articles about nuts, and I encourage you to read them because he really delved into the research. And if you're eating the standard American diet and eating cheeseburgers and switch to eating a better source of fat like nuts, sure, you're going to be healthier and you're going to lose weight, but it doesn't seem like any of these studies are done on people like us, like vegans, people are already eating healthy. So my feeling is there is no one true superfood that everyone must eat or die. I know they're saying that about beans, but I've met so many people with certain GI problems or that have anaphylactic reactions, that are allergic to legumes. So, you know, I think it's the totality of the diet. I don't think I'm going to drop dead because I don't eat nuts, but we'll see. I get my omega-3 fatty acids level checked once a year at my physical. They've been fine. If they're not fine, you can always reintroduce nuts if you can safely. You could also take a vegan DHA supplement too. So thank you so much for your question, Jody, and I hope I answered it.
How about whole wheat, someone asked?
Well, what do you mean, how
Whole
about
wheat
it?
bread. Is there an issue with that?
Well, first of all, the Ultimate Weight Loss Program is a flour-free, gluten-free program, so we don't advocate bread or flour in any amount because of its sheer caloric density. If you were to eat wheat berries, they would be 500 calories a pound, as would any whole grain. Bread and flour is 1,500 calories a pound. But the problem is bread and flours, like sugar, they go through the same refining process as drugs and alcohol. So if you're a food addict suffering from the disease of refined food addiction, it's not a favorable food for you. But even if you're not, it's triple the caloric density of the grains. You would never be able to eat that much grains as you would bread. So I certainly don't recommend it for weight loss, and I really don't recommend wheat anyway. There's so many other grains you can be eating, and I don't recommend bread for people that are wanting to lose weight. It's one of those foods like sugar that most people just have trouble not eating, and that's because it makes you feel good in your brain because of its high caloric density and because it's a powdered food. Anytime you take a whole food and turn it into a powder like flour or sugar or cocaine for that.
Reconnect. Go ahead.
Okay. So that even when it says reconnect on our end, I think it actually works okay on the on the replay. So
Gotcha. Well, Gigi says that she is still stuck at her current clothes size and is working out as much as she can.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do to change Help me lose the pounds.
But first I want to say, if you do observe the Jewish holidays, happy, healthy New Year to everyone. I forgot to say that. So she's stuck at her current clothes size. What can she do? And she's working out. Well, first of all, I like to, when I work with somebody one-on-one or even in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, I always like to see their food journal. And if you're not keeping a food journal, that could be the problem right there, because people that log their food lose 50% more weight than people that don't. So I recommend keeping a food journal. It doesn't have to be a fancy app. It can be just a notebook from the 99-cent store. So the first thing I would want to do is I'd like to see the whole month, but at least 3 days what you've been eating the last day, because there's often clues. You know, I remember Dr. McDougall spoke once to the Live Ultimate Weight Loss Program, and he said that all dieters are liars. And I'm not saying that you are lying. I'm not implying that at all. But sometimes, especially if you're not logging your food, and I think it's best to log it with paper and a pen, you underreport. You know, I have clients that when I observe them in their natural habitat, I see them when they clean up the dishes, for example, they're eating food from the plate as they're putting it away, or they're picking food all day. And those things can add up, and they're not always reported in the food journal. So if you're stuck at your current clothes size, there's a few things you can do. Is first of all, look at your food journal and see what really are you eating, and do as my partner John Pierre says, are you fooling yourself or are you fueling yourself? Because a lot of times people will write down, okay, kale salad, which, you know, could be really healthy, but if you eat it at like a restaurant like Veggie Grill, it's going to have 56 grams of fat. So if you're eating at restaurants, you're probably getting more fat and calories than you would if you made that dish at home. I really don't believe that restaurants can do no oil. I've worked in restaurants for many years. I think they can do less oil, but realize that the grill is coated with oil, all the pans, everything has oil in it. A lot of times they're putting oil in things like rice or beans. Even places that have these healthy kale salads, when you ask for no dressing, it's been pre-treated. It's been massaged with a little bit of oil. So I would look at, are you eating out? Are you eating other people's food? Because anytime you're not in control of your food, there's a chance that things like oil and salt and sugar, or all three, even flours, will be sneaking in and increasing the caloric density of what you're eating, but you really don't know that, because if it's not food you've prepared, you don't know. So that's one thing I would suggest. It's great that you're working out and working out as much as you can, but I don't believe you can rely on weight loss for exercise. I did not work out at all when I lost these 47 pounds, which, by the way, took me 27 months to do. And not because I was trying to prove anything. It's I was coming off a very serious knee injury and being in a wheelchair for a long time, and I just couldn't. I do work out now, but I didn't exercise to lose weight. I'm exercising now because of all the other wonderful benefits. It helps my anxiety. It's just a wonderful thing to do, but I don't rely on it for my weight loss or weight management, because abs are built in the kitchen, not the gym, and you can never out-train a bad diet. So I really do believe that diet is 80 or 90% and exercise is about 10% when it comes to weight loss, but there's many other reasons to exercise other than weight loss. One of the things I would suggest in the realm of exercise is not just doing cardio. That's what people tend to be drawn to, because they think they'll burn more calories and lose more weight, but it's strength training and resistance training, especially if you're female and especially as you age. And the reason I'm so opposed to using the scale as a guide for whether you've lost weight is because if you're lifting weights, which I've recently just started to do, hopefully you're going to gain weight. You're going to gain weight in muscle. Muscle weighs more than fat. So clothes is a very good way to figure out if you're going in the right direction, you know, using a tape measure, things like that. So what do you do if it's not really moving? Well, one of the things you can do is tighten the screws. And by that I mean is be even a little bit more strict than you're being now. And so what that means is maybe increasing the amount of vegetables to starch you eat. The Ultimate Weight Loss Program is a starch-based diet on calories, but volume-wise, we do eat a lot of non-starchy vegetables, and that fills us up at a low caloric density. These are calorie dilute, and it fills the tank, so then we can enjoy pretty reasonable to large portions of delicious whole starch like potatoes, rice and beans, sweet potatoes, winter squashes. And so the idea is I like visually to have, I don't want people to weigh and measure their food. I don't think that's sustainable. But when you eat food, you know, when you're eating a plate of food, make sure that at least half of it is non-starchy vegetables and the other half is some delicious starch. You could increase the vegetables a little and decrease the starch, but you don't want to go so low on the starch that you're going to end up binging or overeating, because the starch is what's going to create the satiety. The other thing you can do is what they taught me at True North Health, where I have the privilege of working several times a year at Extravaganza, if you'd like to join me and my dog Bailey and my husband Charles. But we sequence our meals. Now at True North, the dinner plates are 11 inches, which is 2 to 3 inches bigger than most people's dinner plates. And most of us take 2 plates because what we do is on the first plate, we have a huge salad. When you walk into the dining room at True North, there's this gigantic 24-hour salad bar with all kinds of delicious vegetables and fruits and oil-free dressings. And so by sequencing your meals, what that means is eating the most calorically dilute foods first. So we have a gigantic salad, which a salad is 100 calories a pound. So you really can't overeat on it, but you want to fill the tank, your tummy, which holds about 4.22 cups or a liter of food, with as much of this raw salad as possible first. Then you move on to the hot foods and you have a nice big serving of steamed greens or steamed vegetables. And then you have your more calorically dense but more satisfying starches. And this research was done by Dr. Barbara Rolls at Penn State University. She wrote a series of best-selling books, Volumetrics, and you can listen to my interview with her on my website, Healthy Taste Online. But sequencing your meals, eating the most calorically dilute foods first, like a raw salad, like some steamed vegetables, or even a broth-based soup as opposed to a cream-based soup, this helps people consume fewer calories at the meal. So the idea isn't to avoid the healthy and sustainable and satisfying starches, and not even really to limit them, but to eat in order of increasing caloric density. So those are 2 things I would suggest: increasing the amount of vegetables you're eating, sequencing your meals. Now another thing you can do is eat more raw vegetables in relation to the amount of cooked, because even though vegetables are about 100 calories a pound, they range from about 67 to 125, they become a little bit more calorically dense when we cook them, steam them, or roast them, because we're cooking the water out. So you could eat more raw in proportion to the cook. Now, certain people can't tolerate raw for digestive reasons. They take longer to eat, but you'll be chewing so much, it takes a lot longer to eat, say, for example, a pound of spinach. If you've ever made the recipe on page 100 of Unprocessed, my disappearing lasagna, calls for a pound of frozen spinach. And when you defrost a pound of spinach on your counter and squeeze the water out, literally, it's such a small amount of food, it fits in the palm of your hand. But if you eat a pound of raw spinach, it's a huge amount of food. You probably won't be able to finish it. So raw is a little bit better for weight loss than cooked. The other thing you can do, this 4th thing you can do, is something called intermittent fasting. And what that is, I refer you to the True North website, healthpromoting.com, a wonderful article written by the co-founder, the wife of Dr. Alan Goldhammer, Dr. Jennifer Morano. I also interviewed her on my teleclass. You can find that on Healthy Taste Online. But basically what intermittent fasting is, it's not like the water fasting they do at True North where you just have water or you fast on juice. All it is narrowing the feeding window. So for example, many people eat 3 meals a day and snacks, and some people, whether they're overweight or not, eat from the minute they wake up until they go to bed, which isn't the greatest thing for your digestion, but that's what a lot of people do. Our ancestors certainly didn't eat meals 3 times a day and snacks. So basically what it is narrowing the feeding window to about 6 hours a day. So for example, instead of having breakfast at 7, 8, or 9, it's basically skipping breakfast, having lunch around noon, having dinner around 5, and finishing eating at 6, so that the window that you're eating of the 24 hours a day is, say, from noon to 6. So then you have 18 hours where you're not eating. And I don't know why this works. There was a book written on it, I believe, by a doctor or a man named Fast. But some people do intermittent fasting not because they're trying to lose weight, but just because it works out in their schedule. Like, for example, me, if I go to an 11 o'clock yoga class that gets out at 12:30 and I get home at 12:45, well, I'm not eating until 1 o'clock because I can't eat even a banana and then work out. I just can't. And I always try to finish my dinner by 6 or 7. So I'm sort of doing intermittent fasting without meaning to do it. Now, if the hours of 12 and 6 don't work for you, we have some friends that are elderly and they're in their 80s and they go to bed fairly early at 8 o'clock, and they do this type of intermittent fasting where they have their biggest meal. They get up at 6, they have their biggest meal at 8, they have lunch about 2, and so they're doing it that time. So those are the 4 things I recommend to tighten the screws to see if you can get your weight moving again.
Do the breakfast veggies have to be green? And are they also supposed to be non-starch vegetables for breakfast?
That's a great suggestion. So I do recommend that if you are a food addict, specifically a sugar addict, that whatever you eat for breakfast is not sweet. And that includes fruit, that you start your day in a savory way. In the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, we recommend at least a pound of non-starchy vegetables. If you want to know what a non-starchy vegetable is, just Google it. At least 30 vegetables will come up. So a non-starchy vegetable is basically any vegetable except for peas, which are a legume, corn, which is a grain, potatoes and squash, and I believe parsnips. Everything else is a non-starchy vegetable. Fruits like tomatoes, bell pepper, cucumber, okra, eggplant, and zucchini. These are technically botanically fruits. They're about 67 calories per pound, but these are classified as non-starchy vegetables. So, no, when we started the program about 5 years ago, we said, please eat greens, because Dr. Esselstyn talks about how they promote endothelial health, and he has his patients eating them 6 times a day. If you're coming from the standard American diet and you're a sugar and a flour addict, you're not going to like steamed kale for breakfast unless it's got a whole bunch of fatty sauce on it. So greens would be great to incorporate every day, but if you can't eat greens, eat the vegetable that you hate the least or that you can tolerate. So it can be cherry tomatoes, roasted or raw. It could be whatever vegetable you like. The thing is you don't want to avoid greens. I mean, you want to build your way up to it, and if eating a pound is too much, you can break it up during the day, but realize that when you cook your vegetables, as I mentioned, a pound of spinach or kale, frozen, defrosted, will fit into my hand. It's such a small amount of food. When I make my balsamic Dijon Brussels sprouts, 1 pound of Brussels sprouts is 2 handfuls of foods. It's literally 2 cups. It's not that much food. So yeah, it doesn't have to be green, but I do believe it should be non-starchy, because otherwise it's a starch, which you want to include, but after you've gotten some non-starchy vegetables in.
Colleen says she had breakfast just 2 p.m. 2 pounds of roasted cauliflower.
Yum. Oh, that's delicious. I had actually zucchini. I seem to gravitate. I'm a zucchini girl these days, especially I love drinking the broth. It's called pot liquor.
So we have another question here.
Sure.
And this third question is from Patty.
Okay.
Patty says that she is doing well on the Ultimate Weight Loss Program
Congratulations.
now, and really feels that she is on the right track, but is afraid that she will slip up if she feels a lot of pressure to be perfect, and doesn't know if she can abstain forever from bread and pastries, and feels like she is being stalked by addiction. She wants to know if this must be managed daily and if it gets easier with time.
That's a great question. And so, I'm not an alcoholic, but I have a lot of friends that are recovering alcoholics, and they tell me that in AA there's a saying that when you're getting sober, your addiction is in the corner doing push-ups. So I do believe that food addiction, which is specifically refined food addiction, sugar, flour, and alcohol, which really is not acknowledged by the larger medical community, and unfortunately very few people in my plant-based community acknowledge it, which is why I had to start my own program. I believe that Dr. Goldhammer does believe it's a real disease. Yeah, it's just like any other disease, it has to be managed. It's funny because I had a chiropractic appointment recently with Dr. Goldhammer when I was speaking up at True North, and I said to him, am I okay now? He goes, what do you mean, are you okay? I said, well, I've maintained my weight loss now for almost 5 years, and the research shows that, most people gain it all back within 2, so am I okay? And he goes, of course you're not okay. He goes, you're a food addict, you're never going to be okay. He goes, this disease can't be cured, the obesity can't be cured, best you can do is manage it. He goes, all it's going to take is one bad day, your husband has an affair, your dog dies, and you're going to be back in the jar of peanut butter faster than, anyway, it scared me, but I realized, he's right. Recovery is a daily process, and if a day at a time is too daunting, then take it a meal at a time, and if a meal at a time is too daunting, take it a bite at a time. I can think of friends I have that have had treatment for alcoholism, either by going to AA meetings religiously or some by actually going into an inpatient rehab facility. And when I think back to when their recovery process started, none of them really wanted to quit drinking. And I remember them all saying, I don't know if I can quit drinking forever. I just can't imagine never having another drink. But that's the disease. And as far as I know, the only way to cure any addiction is to abstain from the addictive food or drink. Now, believe it or not, as hard as it is with alcohol and drugs, it's actually easier than with food, because the truth is you can live your life happily and healthfully without ever smoking a cigarette or drinking alcohol or taking cocaine or heroin. You can't live very long without food. I mean, even at True North, where they water fast you for up to 40 days, eventually you're going to have to eat. So food addiction is probably the hardest disease to manage because of the fact that you have to eat to live, and because of the fact that it's insidious. Like everywhere you go, whether it's the hardware store to buy a hammer or Petco to buy your dog a leash, there's not only food, why they're at those type of stores, I don't know. But the worst kind of food, processed food, highly processed, addictive crap, sugar, flour, salt, all those kind of things. So you're inundated with it all the time. If you can clean up your home environment, that's going to help. Remember, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. But if you leave your house, you're going to see those images. You're going to see billboards. You're going to be driving down a McDonald's or a 7-Eleven at every corner. If you watch television, which first of all, I don't really recommend you watch TV, or at least not much. And if you do, DVR it so you don't have to see the commercials. These can all be triggers. And stress can be a trigger. The other thing is if you're using food to manage your mood, whether it's boredom or loneliness or anger or stress or anxiety, if you don't deal with that, it's going to be very difficult to follow a health-promoting diet, because you're not going to get the blasted dopamine in your brain from the foods we recommend, the healthful foods of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, which are much lower in caloric density than sugar and flour and chocolate and nuts and oil, those kind of things. So if you don't ever deal with the emotional part, you may suffer longer, because it really does have to be dealt with. Because if you're using food to manage your mood and to medicate, and you just stop and don't deal with the pain that's causing you to want to do that, eventually you will have your hand back in the cookie jar, or in my case, the peanut butter jar. So it's a tough disease. That's why we have so many people that are suffering and struggling. 3/4 of Americans are overweight. More than half of those are obese. We didn't have these kind of statistics before processed food was as prevalent as it is now. Americans eat over 92% of their calories from animal products and processed food, less than 10% from fruits and vegetables. And these are the kind of foods that make us, unfortunately, fat and sick. So instead of saying, well, I can never have a piece of bread or a pastry, I would just suggest you do it for a designated chunk of time, as Dr. Lyle says, an experiment, and see how it goes. In 2012, January 2nd, 2012 is when I started the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. Dr. Lyle suggested that I do an experiment, because I had spent a whole year since I met him cutting down the amount of nuts I ate to an ounce a day. And I wasn't eating chocolate, I wasn't eating dried fruit or desserts anymore, I wasn't eating flour, I still couldn't lose weight. And he explained that the reason I couldn't lose weight is because of the amount of fat in my diet, that it was probably like 30 or 40%, and to lose weight it would have to be more like 15 or 20. And he suggested that just for 30 days I do an experiment. And by the way, I should have said this with the question with the nuts. I do believe that people vary in the amount of fat they can eat and be fat. There's something called the APOE5 gene that I believe is a marker for that, and I don't know how to get it tested. But I know that there's people out there that can eat 40% of their calories from nuts or seeds or avocado and oil and be slender. And there's other people like me that we eat one Brazil nut and literally gain, 5 pounds overnight. So anyway, so Dr. Lyle said, why don't I do this experiment for 30 days? And I thought he was full of crap, and I said, I'll just show you how stupid you are. I'll do your stupid experiment for 90 days and show you you're wrong. Well, what happened is, after following basically the UWL program and eating compliant food without eating sugar or flour or alcohol or chocolate or salt or any of those things for 90 days, well, not only did I lose 12 pounds, but the funny thing is I felt really good in my brain. I never felt calmer. I had no cravings for anything. And I remember saying to Dr. Lyle, I said, you know what? I don't even care if I lose another ounce. I said, I've never felt this good in my life. And if people could just feel how good they would feel in their brain with a calm, stable brain that isn't always being assaulted with these hyper-palatable foods. Assaulted. If they could understand how good the freedom from food addiction feels for a long enough period of time, they would want to keep eating the foods that create this calm brain. The thing is if you know my story, if you read my book on processed or watched my lecture on the McDougall website or YouTube, From Fat Vegan to Skinny Bitch, you know that I was overweight. I became fat at the age of 5. I was obese by the age of 11. I was almost 200 pounds in my 20s. And I ate nothing but candies, cakes, cookies, pies, and ice cream. I didn't eat a single fruit and vegetable until I was 43. I didn't like the taste of them. And of course, if you're eating, 6 vanilla cupcakes with rainbow sprinkles for lunch, of course you're not going to like the taste of steamed kale. But the funny thing is now, I've been doing this so long that I love my food. I get just as much pleasure from my food as people that eat crap get from their food. So when I eat a Hawaiian sweet potato, to me, it's almost too sweet. It tastes like cake. So the thing is, you have to give it a long time. Don't mess yourself up by saying, I have to do this forever. Even Dr. Goldhammer says we don't have to do it forever. He says just do it for 50 years and then we'll reevaluate. I remember when I first started coaching people, about 5 years ago, I had this client, and it wasn't a weight loss client, it was just somebody that wanted to transition to a plant-based diet. I saw them literally on the day they got out of the hospital after their operation for cervical cancer, and they really were motivated to change because they had read the China study and understood the link between, animal protein and cancer. They had a great compassion for animals. They drove a Prius, so they really were interested in the environment. And so this was a highly motivated client. And I remember I arrived at their house, and she said to me, she goes, well, I don't know if I could, go to Paris and not eat the cheese. And I said, well, when are you going to Paris? She goes, well, I'm not going. I go, well, how many times have you been to Paris? She goes, well, I've never been. I go, well, do you have any plans on going to Paris? She goes, no, but I don't know if I could go to Paris and not eat the cheese. So the thing is instead of saying I can't eat sugar and flour for the rest of my life, it's something like in AA they commit, eat just for today. I'm not going to drink alcohol. Just do it for today. And if today's too long, just do it for this meal. I can eat these things. I don't feel like I can't. I don't feel deprived. I feel the only thing I'm depriving myself of by abstaining from these highly addictive foods, I'm depriving myself of food addiction and obesity and all the diseases that come with it. I choose not to eat these foods. Now, if somebody offered me $1,000 to eat a cookie, I would do it, and I'd give the money to animals as long as it was a vegan cookie. I mean, I probably at this stage in my life, I love my recovery. So thank you so much for your question. Just take it a day at a time. And don't think about you have to be perfect. Who was it that said, was it Voltaire or someone that said perfect is the enemy of the good? Just do your best. And what your best is on one other days. You'll never be able to manage your food addiction and your weight. And how do we manage stress? We do things like meditation, we do yoga, we do mindfulness, we do some kind of movement. And if you relapse, that's not going to define you, because it's not the fact that somebody relapses that makes them unsuccessful. It's when they don't get back on plan. So take it a day at a time. I believe this person is fairly new in her recovery, and I get that a lot, and there's a lot of fear. And I've never met anybody that took this journey, that lost weight, that gained health, that was sorry. So
We have a question about water. How much water do we need to drink? Someone else said about Diet Coke, but we don't need to go there.
Yeah, Diet Coke's
I think
horrible.
enough people said comments on this.
Yeah,
that
Diet Coke.
talked about Coke.
Yeah, you will not.
There.
Yeah, you'll never lose weight and be healthy and.
But talk a little bit about water.
Well, here's the thing. I refer you to my teleclass with Dr. Goldhammer. He answers that. We always learned at places like Optimum Health Institute that we drink half our body weight in ounces in water. So, for example, I weigh 117 pounds, so let's just round up to 120. That would be 60 ounces of water a day. That's about 8 8-ounce glasses. But realize if you're doing the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, you're getting so much water in your fruits and vegetables that you may not need to drink that much water. I think the best way to know if you're drinking enough water is to do the pee test. Look at your pee. If it's a very, very pale yellow, it's good. If it's a dark yellow, you need to be drinking more. And keep in mind, if it's very hot out, if you're exercising a lot, if you're working outdoors, you may need to drink more water. Thirst is not a good guide because you can already be dehydrated by the time you're thirsty. What I do is when I get up, I drink some pot liquor because I like a warm beverage in the morning, so I'm probably drinking 24 ounces of pot liquor. And then when I'm exercising on the spin bike, I'm probably drinking another 24 ounces of my hibiscus tea. That's pretty much all I drink.
What's pot liquor?
Pot liquor is the delicious broth that's left over when you steam your vegetables, and that's what they call it in the South, and it's tasty, and it's delicious, and it's warm. So I would estimate that I drink about 48 ounces of liquid in the morning, and then I don't drink the rest of the day because I'm getting older, and what happens when you get older is you end up having to pee all night, and I'm eating so many fruits and vegetables, that's enough. But I think the way you know you're personally drinking enough water is if your pee is nice and clear. It doesn't mean clear like water, but a very faint yellow. At least that's what I was told by all the doctors that I work with. But please stop Diet Coke. It's not just the sweetener that's so addictive. It's just everything about it. In foreign countries, I remember I was in Mexico teaching, and we stopped at a gas station, and they actually were using Diet Coke to clean the engine part. That is what they do, and they also use it to clean toilets. You don't want that stuff in your body. I was very addicted to that stuff.
Don't clean yourself out with that, you're saying.
Yeah, it's horrible, and all it's going to do is cause you to crave more sweets. It's people that drink the diet sodas are generally heavier than people that use real sugar, so it's a really horrible addictive thing, and especially that particular sweetener, aspartame. All the zero caloric sweeteners are actually worse than sugar.
That's good. Yeah, Jennifer Dyson
I
here has
love
been
her.
updating things and
She's
putting
awesome.
some nice links to people to help share.
She's like the best, isn't she? And she's so cute. She's got these dimples. I love her.
I don't know her.
You would
personally.
love. She's married, but if she
Yeah.
wasn't, Kenny, she's
Yeah,
hot.
someone was asking how your diet is compared to Dr. Furman's, and then Jennifer speaks in about how he recommends all these supplements.
I don't know if he recommends them. He has them on his website. I know that Dr. Furman is a very he's been to my house for dinner twice. He looks amazing. His skin is beautiful. He eats so many vegetables, but he exercises a lot more than me, and he can eat a lot more fat. And to my knowledge, he's never suffered with weight or food addiction. But he's awesome, and his work is amazing. And he actually has a book on fasting that really was the first book of his I read, which actually had me find out about True North. So I really thank him for that.
Well, someone's just talking more about a 600-pound Dr. Nazaura.
Don't know.
Well,
so if there's no more questions, I don't know yet if we're doing it next week. It is a Jewish holiday, Yom Kippur, and I don't know if I can get anybody to shoot it, but maybe it might be a good time to talk about fasting. So if there's no more questions.
we have to talk about the 13th, 14th, 15th, or 14th, 15th.
Right, if you're in town, please go to
now go ahead.
Yeah.
And website is what?
The website is healthylifestyleexpo.com, and I'm going to be speaking on both that Saturday and Sunday, as is Dr. Barnard and Dr. McDougall and lots of other wonderful speakers. If you live anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, I'll be at the Portland Veg Fest. I believe that's the 23rd and the 24th, and I've got some dates coming up in Atlanta and Michigan, so if you live there, consider signing up for my mailing list for updates at www.eatonprocess.com. Thanks so much for watching another installment of Weight Loss Wednesdays. I'm Chef AJ, and I really believe you can have the health and the body you deserve. So think about checking out the Ultimate Weight Loss program so that I can support you to the health and the body that you deserve. Thanks, guys. Bye.